Watch out! It's the classic Lionel number 3424 operating brakeman car on this episode of Toy Train Tips and Tricks. Hello again, this is Mike with episode number 231 of Toy Train Tips and Tricks. And this is a rather dilapidated Lionel number 3424 operating brakeman car. This car came to me as a literal rust bucket item. Seriously, it was one piece of a set that I received in two 5-gallon buckets of rusty trains and accessories. But it was a free gift, so I never look a gift train in the smokestack. Speaking of smokestack, one item that survived in decent condition was the number 2065 steamer that you may have seen in a previous episode, and I hope to feature it in an upcoming video alongside its fraternal twin, the number 2055 Hudson. This car, however, was a mess. The trucks and couplers were rusted so badly as to be completely unsalvageable. They literally fell apart in my hands. The frame was extremely rusty, but I was able to salvage it with a vinegar soak, lots of scrubbing, and a coat of rust-inhibiting paint. As for the shell, one door was completely missing, and the other fell off as all four of the door guides had rusted away to nothing. The blue shell even had rust stains that I was unable to remove. But with all that, the solenoid mechanism inside the car was almost completely unscathed, and it worked perfectly. So what is this car anyway, and what does it do? The Lionel number 3424 Wabash Brakeman car was first introduced in 1956, at a time when Lionel was making creative, whimsical, and action-oriented designs that captured the imaginations of young and old alike. The number 3424 was essentially a 6464 boxcar with a twist, featuring a brakeman figure on the roof who quickly dropped down when triggered by a trackside telltale and just as quickly popped back up again, somewhat mimicking the real-life actions of brakemen on early freight trains. It was a great way to provide kids a sense of action on their layouts. The number 3424 was cataloged through 1958 and came as a blue Wabash car with white lettering, featuring two sliding doors and bar-end trucks, along with a blue or white brakeman figure. The brakeman's movement was a hit, and the action occurred automatically with no additional wiring and no buttons to push. But why were brakemen walking on train roofs in the first place? Let's get in our Wayback Machine to the early days of American railroading. Before automatic air brakes became standard in the late 19th century, brakemen had a very dangerous job. They would climb on the roofs of freight cars and walk along narrow roof walks, wooden or metal platforms running on the length of the car, to manually set the handbrakes on each car, even when the train was moving. This dangerous activity was critical for controlling train speed, especially on steep grades. Brakemen used the roof walks to move between cars, balancing on top in all kinds of weather, often at night. It was extremely risky, and falls were common. And low bridges or tunnels posed deadly hazards, which is why telltales, those dangling warning devices, were installed to alert brakemen to duck. The practice began to fade with the adoption of air brakes, mandated by the 1893 Railroad Safety Appliance Act. And by the early 20th century, most trains used automatic air brake systems, reducing the need for brakemen to walk on roofs. But these walkways were still used by crewmen to travel between the front and rear of the train and to set or release manual brakes during switching operations. Roof walks were finally outlawed on new cars beginning in 1966 by the Federal Railway Administration due to safety concerns. And by the early 1970s, most older freight cars had their roof walks removed, although a handful of non-interchange cars remained unmodified into the 1980s. The Lionel number 3424 captures a rather romanticized version of this now obsolete practice, frozen in time. Looking again at my 3424, I wanted to salvage the car since the mechanism was working, but it was going to take a lot of parts to get it back to being layout worthy. Instead of buying individual parts, I found a junker 3424 on eBay that still had all the parts that I needed: trucks, wheels, couplers, pickups, door guides, and one good door. And it was much cheaper than buying individual parts. Speaking of buying parts, if you like this kind of content, consider financially supporting the channel through a membership. Channel members receive special shoutouts, messages, and photos, along with access to exclusive members-only video content and early access to regular videos when available. Thanks again to channel members for helping me help you keep the trains running. Now, back to the video. So, step 1 was cleaning the shell. A little bit of mild liquid dish soap, water, and a medium toothbrush was all it took to get most of the dirt and grime off. A little WD-40 and a stiffer brush took most of the rust off the door guides. The frame was quite rusty too, so I needed to remove the mechanism. Surprisingly, everything but the Brakeman figure was present, and it seemed to move okay. I didn't try powering it up, but it looked like it would work if I needed it to. I set the mechanism aside and popped off the trucks by removing the retaining clips. The wiring was going to need replacement anyway, so I cut the wires to remove and clean the trucks. After I soldered new wires to the truck pickups, I used the painted frame on my first 3424 since it was in better shape, and reattached the trucks and ran the wires through the holes in the bottom of the frame. I attached the mechanism and brakeman from my first 3424 and resoldered the wire connections. To replace the busted door, I thought I could slightly bend the bottom door guide out just enough to slip the good door from the first model in place. But the door guide rivet was weak from oxidation and it broke off. Replacement rivets are available, but having none in my parts bin and not wanting to wait for new rivets to arrive, I instead cut a short length of 18-gauge wire and shoved one end through the hole in the boxcar shell where the rivet goes, and bent one end around the door guide and the other end inside the shell. And it works! If I painted the wire black, I doubt that anyone would even notice. It will certainly hold until I order some replacement rivets. Then I gently removed the Brakeman figure from his perch and reattached the boxcar shell to the frame. Lastly, I put the Brakeman back in his home atop the mechanism. So how does the 3424 work? This simple track clip makes the magic happen. Simply attach it to the rails, and it automatically connects the outside rails to the two control rails and the device. By the way, there should be two different sets of control rails with an original car, one for O27 track and a taller set for regular O-gauge track. A plastic pole with telltales should also be attached to the activator clip, but mine is missing. It should be pretty easy to create a new pole and telltale set using my 3D printer. In actual operation, there should be two track clips with telltale poles, one placed on either side of a low bridge, tunnel portal, or other obstruction. As the car reaches the telltale, the pickup shoe on the car picks up power from the outside rails, which runs through the solenoid and out the other truck to the center rail pickup, completing the circuit. This makes the brakeman quickly drop down and out of the way. On the other side of the obstruction, the other telltale mechanism makes the brakeman pop back up and continue his duties. The brakeman will continue to drop and hop over and over as the train crosses the activators. I only have one track clipped, so for now my operation is a non-realistic pop up and pop down at random, but it's still fun to watch. One common problem is the actuator may sometimes short out against the center rail. This can be avoided by simply placing a strip of vinyl electrical tape in the channel valley between the actuator and the center rail. Also, note that the pickup shoe on the boxcar is thinner than on most of Lionel's action cars. This is meant to prevent accidental operation on turnouts and uncoupling tracks. However, it may still be activated by the number 3656 cattle platform, the 497 coaling station, and similar thin-bladed accessory activators. As previously mentioned, I only have one of the 3424-80 base plate actuators for my car. Replacement pieces are available from parts dealers or on eBay, but But an alternative is to make your own out of a scrap tubular rail or a strip of brass. Hello, this is Mike of the future. I'm interrupting because I decided to demonstrate a proof of concept for the do-it-yourself track actuators. I started with 2 pieces of scrap 027 rail about 2.5 inches long. If you're using O-gauge tubular track, use scraps of that for the project. I started by using pliers to squeeze and flatten the rails as much as possible. Get the rails really skinny so the narrow contact shoe will work with them. You might have to adjust the flared wings on the bottom of the rail to get the correct height, which is just slightly above the height of your regular rail. For my proof of concept, I hot glued these makeshift control rails to the tie on the track. Line up your rails so that they are centered over the mounting holes in the tie. Then, since the glue is an insulator, I had to run a jumper wire to the rail for my test. And it worked somewhat. I found that the rail stayed in place better and operation improved when I added wood ties under each end for support. Again, I just used hot glue for this test. If I had done these support ties first, I probably would not have needed the glue in the middle, which would also eliminate the need for jumper wires because my added rails would pick up the outside rail power from the metal tie itself. Perhaps a small screw would help even more. It needs a bit more refinement, but as you can see, it does work in concept. Now you can operate your 3424 even if you're missing the original activation clips, and you don't have to pay $10 to $20 each for factory-made replacements. Now back to the original video. The number 3424 was not the only post-war car to feature this duck under the telltales design. The number 3376 and its nearly identical twin, the number 3386, Bronx Zoo cars, also known as the giraffe cars, were introduced in 1960. The number 3376 was a modified stock car, painted blue with white lettering, and it featured a yellow giraffe with brown spots, though rare plain yellow giraffes exist. Its operation is mechanical, not electrical. A plastic guardrail, part number 3376-105, connected to the same telltale base as the Brakeman car, pushes the giraffe's head down as it passes under. It's simple, reliable, and a kid magnet. A string of these cars together creates a hilarious scene that is appreciated by kids of all ages. The giraffe car's popularity led to modern reissues, like the number 67913 Turtleback Zoo Giraffe car from the MPC era and the 6-16605 from the 1980s. These kept the ducking giraffe, but often had updated decoration, like Toys R Us or Jeffrey's Giraffe cars. These reissues are still mechanical, using the same guardrail system, but some are compatible with Fast Track. Lionel also released special themed versions, like the Christmas reindeer car, keeping the concept fresh for new generations. Of course, freight car roofwalks were sometimes used by unauthorized passengers, namely hobos, as well. This reality was represented by the number 3357 Cop and Hobo car, cataloged from 1962 through 1964. The 3357 utilizes a smaller Scout-type boxcar with a, quote, hydraulic maintenance platform mounted on its roof. 2 figures, a hobo and a railroad cop, continuously swap places on the car platform and an oddly shaped bridge platform. Again, no electricity and no control buttons are required to initiate this repetitive cat-and-mouse action. Each of these cars was released at various times in the MPC and modern eras, and there are at least 4 reissued versions of the number 3424, a post-war celebration series car that is nearly identical to the original Wabash car, plus versions decorated for Delaware and Hudson, Monon, and Baltimore and Ohio's colorful Sentinel service. With the retirement of Lionel's tubular track in favor of Fast Track, 3424 operators are left without a suitable factory-made track activator for their cars. And Lionel has not produced a new reissue of the car since Fast Track became the company track standard a decade and a half ago. Instead, Lionel developed a new man-on-the-roofwalk car, the walking Brakeman car. This car needs no activator, but instead track power allows the continuous movement of a figure back and forth on the roof of a car. No ducking or hopping required. In addition to the Brakeman, this car has used a wide variety of figures from various licensed franchises, marching soldiers, and even a surfing Santa. So why do these cars endure? The number 3424 Brakeman, Bronx Zoo, Giraffe, and their variants combine clever mechanics with that Lionel magic, turning a train layout into a living, breathing story. The 3424 also preserves a slice of railroad history, reminding us of the daring brakeman who once walked the roofs of freight trains. Whether you're a post-war purist or you love the modern surfing Santa, these cars bring joy to any layout. Let me know in the comments which Lionel operating car is your favorite. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more great content. Keep the trains running, and don't forget to duck. And we'll catch you next time with more toy train tips and tricks.